Today we're going to be going over adding and subtracting polynomials. You should have your algebra tiles out on your desk. Make sure they don't fall on the floor. If you don't have enough for one of these activities, then you and your partner or the person next to you can share tiles. Just make sure you separate them before you put them back get back in the bag at the end of class. First thing I want you to do is I want you to copy this problem down on your paper. Not the tiles over here. These are my tiles to you. So I want you to copy this problem down, and then we're going to model this equation with these tiles. So go ahead and write this down. Now, this is what it should look like. Okay, so I've got 2x squared and a negative x, and x squared, 3x's, and a negative 1. So first thing I'm doing when I'm adding is I'm combining like terms. So when I'm combining like terms, I need to see if I have 0 pairs. So right here, I've got a negative x and a positive x. Those are actually going to combine to make a 0 pair. I do not have any other 0 pairs, so I'm going to combine my like terms. And it looks here like I have 3x squared, a positive 2x, and a negative 1. When I'm looking at my problem, I've got 2x squared plus an x squared to give me 3x squared, negative x and positive 3x to give me 2x, and my negative 1. So that's what we did. Okay, next I want you to copy down the second problem that we're going to do with tiles. Copy this down. Now I want you to model it with your tiles. This is what it should look like. Okay, first thing we need to do when we combine like terms, since we are adding, we're adding here, is we need to cancel out our 0 pairs. So I've got a positive 1 and a negative 1. Positive 1, negative 1. And I actually have some x's that need to cancel. So that looks like that's all my 0 pairs. So what I'm left with is 4x squared, a positive x, and a positive 1. So when I'm looking here, 3x squared plus an x squared, I'm putting apples with apples. So I have 4x squared, 2x, and negative x. Those are oranges with oranges. Remember, if they're different, you can't combine them. Gives me a positive 1x. And a positive 5, negative 4 gives me a positive 1. Alright. Next problem, copy this down on your paper. Let's model this with tiles now. And this is what it should look like. Okay, first thing we need to do when we're subtracting. When we subtract, we actually treat this as a negative 1 and we distribute the negative, right? So if I'm distributing a negative, this is going to make this a positive 4x squared, and this is going to be a negative x. So over here, all of my signs are changing. So what I need to do is I need to flip them over. Let's do that. Alright, this is what it looks like. Now we need to cancel our 0 pairs, so I have a negative x and positive x. Those cancel, and what I'm left with is 5x squared plus x. So when I'm looking up here at my equation, if I have x squared and a positive 4x squared, because when I distribute the negative it becomes positive, I have 5x squared, and a 2x minus an x is going to leave me with one positive x. Now the last kind that we're going to demonstrate with tiles, write it down and then model it. This is what it should look like. Okay, now since this is negative, this is like distributing this -1, so I'm actually going to have a -1x squared and a -6x. So all of these signs need to flip. So let's flip these tiles over. All right. When we are adding, the easiest way to do this, okay, we're always going to be adding, even if we're subtracting, and I'll show you that when we get there. To combine like terms, I want you to first write out what you have in the first set. So I've got 2x squared plus x plus 1, and leave some space in between them. And then I'm adding x squared, -4x, and +3. Now, if you notice, I put the x squareds with the x squareds, the x's with the x's, and the constants with the constants. Make sure you do not put them in the wrong column. Now, all we have to do is combine them, so we're just adding. So 2 plus, this is a 1, so 2 plus 1 gives me 3x squareds. A +1 and -4 give me a -3x. And a +1 and +3 gives me a +4. So here is my simplified polynomial. 3x squared minus 3x plus 4. Next problem. Copy this one down. All right. Again, we're adding. So let's put these where they go. Let's put x squared, my -4x, and my +2. And then I'm adding, I'm combining a 2x. Now I don't have an x squared over here, so the 2x has to go with the -4x. So I'm going to put it here with the -4x. And then my -3. When I combine like terms, I have an x squared. -4 and 2 give me -2x. And +2 and -3 give me -1. So here is my polynomial. Now we're going to be subtracting. Copy this problem down. Okay, just like before with the tiles, we modeled it, but then we actually distributed this negative. We treated it like a -1, and we distribute it. So what I'm actually going to have is this one's going to say the same, x squared minus 5x plus 3. But now we're going to do plus, and we're going to distribute the negative. So this will be like -2x squared minus 3x minus 2. You don't have to put the parentheses because really the plus tells me we're combining like terms. So what we're going to do, we're going to set it up so it's organized. Start with the beginning. I'm going to have x squared minus 5x plus 3. And I'm combining, so I'm adding -2x squared, -3x, and -2. When I add them together, this is a 1, so I've got 1 minus 2 is -1x squared. -5x and -3x gives me -8x. And 3 minus 2 is a +1. So that's really all you have to do on the subtract thing. We're going to distribute the negative, but then we're still going to be combining like terms. So we're going to be adding them. Let's try another. So copy this down. This one's a little different because we're using xy instead of x. Okay, and what we're going to do here, we're going to start by distributing this negative 1. So I've got x squared plus 2xy plus 1 plus, and when we distribute this, I'm going to have negative x squared minus 3xy minus 5. Then I'm going to combine like terms. Remember, you can only put apples with apples and oranges with oranges. They have to look exactly alike. So I'm going to put x squared here, a positive 2xy here, and a positive 1 here. I'm going to add, second part, I have a negative x squared minus 3xy minus 5. So a 1 minus a 1 gives me 0. 2 minus 3 gives me negative 1xy. And 1 minus 5 gives me negative 4. So this is my answer. There are only two terms. This last problem, I want you to copy it down and see if you can work it out before I do. I'm going to distribute my negative 1. When I combine like terms, this one was a tricky one. If we have negative x squared, okay, that's got x squared. Nothing else here has x squared, so I'm going to put it over here by itself, negative x squared. I've got a positive 3x here, so plus 3x. I don't have another x term. First one, I've got negative 2y. So I've taken care of these two, taken care of this one. I have a positive y, so that's actually going to go down here. We're going to combine these two together. And then a positive 1 and a positive 2 from right here. So I can only combine the terms that are exactly alike. So when I pull this down, I should have had negative x squared plus 3x. Negative 2 and positive 1 gives me negative 1y, and 1 plus 2 is plus 3. So this is my final answer.